Well, this evening we're going to be speaking with a person who originally started with aspirations of studying psychology, but is now a chartered business valuator, a business owner, and podcaster in the form of Kevin Valley. Welcome, sir. How you do?
I'm all right, man. Listen, you threw me for a loop when you caught me with that psychology angle, man. I see you spent your time and you did your research, man. I love that. Respect that, man.
Makeout scenes are always nice.
Yeah.
Well, within reason, then, yo. But I want you to start off, though, giving an overview of your work and the services that you offer. Because it's one thing to say, okay, well, I'm a chartered business valuator, but in terms of what that means, take us through that process.
Yeah. Okay. So so chartered business valuator. So that is a program that I spent more time than I want to admit pursuing. With the Canadian Institute of Chartered Business Valuators, now renamed to CBV Institute. And yeah. So I guess it does what it says on the tin. I perform business valuations for companies for a variety of purposes, be it you're looking to raise equity capital, be it for financial reporting purposes, and sometimes even for litigation support purposes. So if you want to take somebody to court because their actions, the result of their damages is a loss of your business value. So we've had a potential client with that circumstance.
So it sounds like there's a big catchment area, but if we were to ask about an ideal client or candidate for your services, who is that type of person that would naturally head towards you for this type of service?
All right. So when we speak about ideal clients, and I love that question too, right? People tend to say that their ideal client is somebody whose problem they could solve, but that's one of the factors, yes. But scientifically, there's actually like three factors that I look for. The first being, who can you create the biggest amount of change for? The second being, who has the funds to pay for your service, who could pay a premium for your service? And the third being, of course, who do you like working with? So with my business valuation practice, as well as capital raise and advisory, I like to focus on medium-sized companies who have, let's say, the annual revenues between 1 and 25 million US. I think that's a nice sweet spot, and it's also a spot that is somewhat underserved by the rest of the market, because the rest of the market is looking for the larger companies. Everybody's chasing the big fish. But there's some medium-sized fish that could eventually be some big fish with some support.
And one of the things that I hear now from you, as well as in other conversations that you've had, is that it's not just about money. Even though you rattle off a figure very easily, but I guess you practice and this is what you do. But you also speak about relationships and making connections. How easy is that? And I'll give a little backstory on myself. My father taught maths, phys, chem. I tried to run as far from math as possible. Sometimes it feels like I ran in a circle. But in terms of saying, okay, well, as opposed to just numbers on a paper or figures in a bank account, these digits represent people and possibility and potential. How do you make that come out in the way that you do what you do?
Yeah, well, first I'll say, my father was a politician. I tried to run. I'm still running from that, But in terms of networking, you have to realize, right? At some level, when it comes to just raw technical skills, you could get it. You spend the time, you study, you practice, or whatever it is, you could get that, right? So it's almost like the technical skills can become commoditized. But what really has a lot of value, a lot of intrinsic value to you, is the network, the people you could collaborate with, the people you could partner with. So for instance, DK, right now, you and I are partnering, You're providing a distribution platform for me, and I'm providing content for you, so I'm providing essentially a product for you. So yeah, I think people undervalue the value of networking too much, and I think that is one of the biggest intangible assets that, one could build.
And that makes me ask the question, though, how many things are we not validating enough, not valuing enough, just because it's happening all the time, and we don't put a name on it that can be formalized and written into a plan or methodology? Because it seems as though there's so many things that kind of fall by the wayside because, well, it's what we do. As opposed to saying, okay, well, this is something that we do and we can do better and we can take forward in a manner that can be eventually monetized, even though that may not be the initial aim.
Yeah, and that is something that you see very common with like small and medium-sized businesses, entrepreneurs, creatives, and everything. It's just like you focus on the doing and the producing, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Because that's what you love to do. That's what you were trained to do. That's what your passion is. But for it to really be something that's sustainable, something that's generational, something that could be passed on and lives on, and something that investors will want to help you grow. You'll need to put some systems around it. You need to have people around you that could help further it, right? So one of the biggest risks that a lot of people in business face right now is that their business may not be able to run without them. They can't take a 2-month vacation and expect things to run business as usual. And worse than that is that the business can't survive without them.
No, I like the fact that you're talking about business, and I want to talk about your business. So we're moving past 2020 and COVID-19, but 2018, become investable. What?
Yes.
No, I wouldn't talk about how that's something in my ears, but what is it? And what was the intent?
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I love that question, right? Become investable. So we're a business advisory company. We specialize in helping businesses. Again, this is more like these small and medium-sized businesses, people who are already in business for at least a year, so they have some sort of track record, some sort of financial performance and stuff that we could look at, help them to position their systems, be it their competitive advantage, be it their human resource systems like succession planning and stuff I was talking about, or even just kind of raise flags to them to let them know that, hey, I mean, you have this company that is heavily reliant on your brand or your intellectual property. Have you protected that intellectual property? Or do you know how to evaluate the performance of your board, of your company? All these things are to kind of de-risk your company for you and for your investors and everything. Just so you want to less headache as possible, right? Just to make things run smoothly. So yeah, so we are a business advisory company that helps companies position their business to make them attractive for sophisticated investors.
No, speaking about sophisticated investors, I want to know where you kind of target investors from. But even before that, though, do you kind of need to split your brain into different things? Do you need to kind of have a vision for a client's company that they might not be seeing at themselves because they may be too close to what it is they're doing? Like you say, too heavily invested, they can't step away for 2 months. How do you help to say, okay, well, this is something that you can do. This is a part of your brand that I think you're underserving, so you may want to pay a little more attention to it. How do you look at these kind of things and prepare for clients when meeting and trying to provide what it is they need in that area?
Yeah, so I mean, one, it's a lot of industry research, and two, I believe it's more listening. So I'm better at listening and really hearing what it is you want for your company, and then kind of saying, well, you could do this, you could do that, and that could have this effect for you, as opposed to just coming, well, here's my ideas, kind of shoving it down somebody's throat. Because to get proper results from somebody, they have to be enrolled in what you're saying. They have to be, you have to, again, they have to feel like they're listened to, they have to feel like they're understood, and they have to feel like they're valued,
And this is something that we're going to bring up on the other side of the break. We are speaking with Kevin Valley. Stay with us. Welcome back. We are speaking with Kevin Valley, a chartered business valuator, and so much more. Now, Kevin, one of the things that you're just saying that people, it makes sense, or it helps you to help people when they feel that they're listened to. And there's a saying that opportunity requires access. If I don't have access to something, I can't take advantage of an opportunity. Our conversation, I think, was sped up a little bit by you being a part of Youth on the Money. So I'm wondering what that access, what kind of opportunities you think that provided for you in terms of being listened to and being heard?
Well, I mean, it's about what gave me the opportunity to be on that platform in the first place. So, thank you very much to Jayan. Jayan Francis, I think that's her surname. I'll have to double check. Sorry, Jayan, I forgot your surname right now. But yeah, so Jayan reached out to me on LinkedIn maybe a month before the actual program, and she said, "Hey, Kevin, I've been binge listening to your podcast, Caribbean Power Lunch, and I would love for you to be a part of this youth discussion on the budget. Are you interested?" And I said, "Sure." And she told me it'll be recorded and syndicated through the television stations. And I said, "Okay, cool." And yeah, being on that platform was a really great experience. Met a lot of fantastic young people, Isaiah, Martha, Kadisha, Hans, all these folks. And yeah, since then it has started a conversation, a very important conversation on how the budget impacts youth and the future of our country and who is responsible for the future of our country. Is it the private sector? Is it the government? Because it's the easiest thing for folks to do is to say, well, the government has to fix it.
And that leads quite nicely to the question of how do we start initiatives locally? Is it that government is to build the space, but private sector is to take it forward, or to come with the ideas? Is there a formula that works best? We're not asking you to say a one-size-fits-all, but in your experience, what are some of the things that go into something that works well?
So when you think about the source of wealth for an economy, where the government gets its funds, it's from taxing the private sector, right? So we have the monetary policy, we have fiscal policy. Monetary policy is where they toggle interest rates and the money supply. So that's the central bank's function, right? Central bank essentially is the department in charge of the monetary policy. But the fiscal policy, that's where, that's the budget that we hear every year, and that's funded by taxes. And taxes source from income that we produce as income that we generate as individuals, as well as income we generate as companies, right? So if the companies aren't performing at their optimal capacity, then they're not as able to provide as much taxable income for the government, and then that kind of hampers how much funds we have to reinvest in our economy, right? Okay, so that's one thing, right? That's the economic aspect. But the government is in charge of a whole other social aspect. We have to talk about, all right, is this a good country is this a safe country? Is this a quality country to live in? What about food production? If I get sick, can I get to the hospital easily and get treated too? I get treated. So it's a mix of economic and social factors, but it's all about quality of life.
And is one thing to say, okay, well, we need these factors, we need to take them in, but was your perception in the role that your generation plays in moving TNT forward? And I ask that because you're at that kind of interesting station where you're not necessarily long in the tooth, but at the same time, you've seen some things, you have some experience, you have your feet planted, and you have a general idea of what it is you want to do. In terms of getting individuals in that age group, kind of invested in saying, okay, well, it's my responsibility as well. Because, sometimes you have people say it's them, as in the older heads, and then you have older heads looking and saying, what are these young people doing? But what happens to the people in the middle? How do you get motivated? Where do you draw your inspiration? And is it that you're trying to carry people with you along for that ride, riding that wave?
Wow, that was a lot of a question there, DK. Okay. So what I would say is that, through every revolution that you've seen in history, it's always been incited by technology, some sort of technological advancement, right? And it's traditionally the young people who are able to grasp the technology and run with it as faster than the older folks, right? So I think especially now where we have coronavirus and everything, and everybody's had to find a way to operate from home and do what they need to do from home. I think we're gonna see a lot more dominance of stuff like AI. Well, I don't want to say cryptocurrency and that sort of stuff, but a lot of online business and e-commerce and all of that sort of stuff. And I think that will also kind of provide an avenue for us to attract foreign income, so attract US dollars, so kind of help solve that US supply problem.
And I didn't raise the point, you raised it, so I'm very happy to talk about it. What kind of inspiration do you draw from your dad? Because I remember you talking about seeing different kind of work ethics and stuff. Is that something that you take and use with you on a daily basis?
Yeah. I mean, and I tell my close friends all the time, like, you know, so dad passed away since May 2011, and since then to now, I mean, like just maybe 3-4 nights ago, I dreamt him, and every time I dream him is that same kind of theme. It's just like he never passed, like he's just still there, you know. And I use that as a source to drive me, because I saw his work ethic. I saw him coming home late from work, and he's up into the night working. You know, he'll go to the gym late and stay up in the night, going through his cabinet brief, then get up in the morning, put on his suit and go to work. And to me, now that he's gone and everything, especially as, you know, you have this burden of, okay, he's Ken Valley's son, you know, so it's like people already have you at a certain point in your head, whether it's fair to me or not. So I try to live up to that, and well, I'm not going to say I want to try to exceed it, but you know, I try to hold my own in my own way.
Definitely, and we don't necessarily say gone, but that has transitioned through that veil. But Caribbean Power Lunch podcast.
Mm-hmm.
What's the inspiration? Who do you have on? What do you try to do?
Right. So that podcast. So I mean, as you know, that podcast is initially created to highlight the work of Black Caribbean entrepreneurs, because I found that at the time it was something that was not being highlighted enough, and I had a lot of qualms about putting it out at first, because I was worried if people would think, oh my gosh, is Kevin racist now? You know, what's happening? You know, but what I found is that, you know, when you look at the other ethnic communities, that they're very together, they're very supportive of each other, you know, and they invest in each other, and they encourage each other to start businesses and to grow and thrive, and they pass it on for generations. But I wasn't seeing that so much in the Black community. I was seeing that the Black community focuses more on education than employment, right? So it was almost that, like, black business was something that you hardly see. But because of my background in banking and finance, and my background in this seeing businesses from different segments, I would say, well, okay, well, let's highlight these businesses. And well, luckily for me, it was well received, you know. So my friends from all various communities were very supportive of it, and you know, they go ahead and share it with their people and everything. So, yeah. And
we have just about a minute more. I want to ask the question of, how do we attract investors who are not necessarily in our shows? How do we look outward and have people say, that is something I want to be a part of, even though they're not in my backyard?
Yeah, so this is the beauty of the internet and social media, right? So if you're doing something great right now, the world is almost at like an even competitive stage, right? So, for instance, the guy who edits my podcast, he's based in the Philippines. You know, we have for Become Investible, we have a graphic artist based in India. You know, just the other day we were talking to a developer based in Morocco. You know, so it's like we're all competing at the same playing field. I mean, it's all about your raw value, right? Your raw skill set. What can you bring to the table? And yeah, I mean, I think the internet has been a great equalizer, and I think that's how you bring in the foreign money now.
And I think on that, we need to talk a little later after, but quickly, contact information for you, please, Kevin.
Sure. You could email me at kevin.valley@becomeinvestable.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram. You could check me out there. My website is www.kevinvalley.com. And yeah, feel free to shoot me an email.
All right, thank you so much. And we look forward to chatting with you again, Kevin Valley, doing big things. And on behalf of the entire news team, I'm DK Rossa. Thank you for joining us. Have a good night.